And welcome to our episode today on education and AI and how AI is shaping the way that schools are both looking at education and also the way that they're using it to become more productive. So today with me, I'm very excited to have Marlene Dandler, who is with Seashore Academy in Newport Beach. And it's really fascinating, her approach to education. And I just wanted to have her jump on and tell a little bit about her story and sort of where this concept came, which is, to me, seems to be a bridge between homeschooling and education in a formal sense. But how do we bridge that interaction, that physical interaction, with also having some of the benefits of self-paced education. So I'm going to turn that over to Marlene, talk a little bit about your background, Marlene, and how you came up with this incredibly fascinating idea. And then we'll continue our conversations as we go through this. Thank you for
Thank
being
you
here.
for having me on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on. So my name's Marlene. I grew up in the Seattle area. I had the good fortune of attending the Lakeside School in Seattle and having early access to tech. We had email and the best computers, thanks to Bill Gates, who was a big donor there. He went to Lakeside School. His kids went to Lakeside School. And then on to Dartmouth. And at Dartmouth also was on the forefront of technology. We all had Blitzmail and computers everywhere on campus. And so I really, was there this wave of students. I graduated in 1998 from Dartmouth, and, we were sort of at the forefront of email and all the promises of
Yeah.
everything that computers could do. I do remember some professors who had been there for quite some time saying that the quality of the writing
Yeah.
had not improved at all. In fact, had gone downhill with all the word processing. So maybe it's easier for them to read. But they said, for all the hoopla of, being able to turn papers in, print it out on a computer, it really, the quality of the writing wasn't any better than had been on a typewriter or handwritten. And so I do remember that. And, I really was raising my kids during all the time when iPhones were coming out and iPads and this wave of computing, and looking at private schools, we know, saying, oh, your kindergartners are going to learn PowerPoint. And um, also knowing that the people who were creating iPads weren't putting their kids in front of it. And I also knew from just research on brain development that the best way to really retain knowledge is pencil and paper. And so I really wasn't wowed by all the computing. And when it came time to put my own kids into school, really looking at the best things for children in brain development and what outcomes did I really want them to have when they were 25-year-old adults. And, a lot of it wasn't pointing to tech. If we want our 25-year-olds to be healthy socially, emotionally, physically, tech really wasn't a part of that. Yes, they need to know how to use tech, but technology is advancing so quickly. It didn't make sense to
Yeah.
teach a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old even on how to best use, a BlackBerry. If Blackberries are going to be obsolete, and then those little iPhones that they first came out with are then obsolete. The best thing for children's mental, emotional, academic development is fine and gross motor skills, pencil and paper, learning how to interact socially with others, how to have a discussion, how to read, think critically, debate ideas, learn their mathematics with pencil and paper, go through the process of making mistakes, correcting them. And for retention of knowledge, the research was really clear that taking pencil and paper notes, taking the exact same notes typing versus pencil and paper notes, there's far better retention of knowledge on those who took pencil and paper notes. So I really wasn't all that wowed by computers, maybe because I had grown up in an era where computers are supposed to solve all of the world's problems, and I had seen that they hadn't, and there are always these new fads. And so, with AI, it's advancing so rapidly. I
Yeah.
mean, the exponential growth. things in 3 months are going to look far different than they do today. It doesn't make any sense to spend time teaching children about AI when it's going to be obsolete in a matter of weeks or months.
I mean,
Really, Mhm.
I was just gonna say, it's one of the reasons why, my AI installation firm that the growth stack that sponsors this podcast, we don't use customization because of that reason. Like the tools they're just, they're moving so quickly that by the time we've built it for you, it's irrelevant. And so, to your point, it's such a fast moving pace. You're like, and every teacher that I've spoken to, every principal that I've spoken to, is struggling with this. How do we find that balance between critical thinking and AI efficiency? And so, what you're saying really is, we're not going to even introduce AI efficiency until much later. What is the
Exactly.
actual age of of the child in your class?
Yeah, so we have students between 4 and 14. So
Fine.
TK, transitional kindergarten to 8th grade. And so we don't want them to be technological dinosaurs for sure, right?
Yeah.
We want them to know how to use AI, and we want them to know how to use computers. And we really feel like the best way we can do that, Tina, is for young children especially, is to really focus on being in nature and to really focus on the things that we know are good for developing brains. And so that when they are adults, they can intelligently program AI as it's developed at that point. Because if their brains are properly developed as children and as young people, and they're not on screen time excessively, right, then their brains are going to be on fire, their neural pathways will be on fire, they'll be able to think critically, program AI intelligently, use it maybe interactively with others in a way we can't even comprehend right now because AI will be so different. But at least we know that they have those critical thinking skills. So we want them in book discussions, in nature, outside, doing their mathematics, pencil and paper, getting that rational thinking down and getting the process of thinking down very, very strong so that when they are adults and their brains are developed, they have the best chance at navigating AI in the best possible way.
So
Um,
I have a question about this. How, obviously you're finding I'm just curious what the parents' reaction, because parents are they oscillate between terrified of it and completely embrace it. And this is, so I'm just curious, like, what is this, how are parents sort of finding you? Like, what is their take on it? Because I'm assuming a specific type of parent finds you.
Honestly, I mean, parents, their kids are inundated with screen time, and parents are terrified. And
Yeah.
everyone knows it's unhealthy. I mean, everyone knows Instagram's terrible, and most kids are on it. So it's all about management, right? How much screen time? I mean, you can delay giving your kid a phone, but that's getting younger and younger. You can not allow them to use Instagram, but uh, you know, if that's even getting younger and younger. But everybody's on YouTube because all the educational videos are on YouTube. I
Yeah.
mean, you've got strollers now with iPad holders, right? So um it's just about managing their screen time. And so just having an oasis where their kids are free of tablets for 6 hours is
Yeah.
a relief. And then knowing that they will be doing if they have any homework, it's all pencil and paper. Because that's another thing, right? Because most schools, public, private, and charter, the kids are on tablets all day during their learning time. So the 6 to 8 hours a day, they're on these tablets. And then their homework is all on tablets. And then the kids are switching their screens and getting on apps that maybe they shouldn't be. So, I mean, a tiny fraction of an hour doing homework is actually on an educational app. Most of that hour they track is actually the kids switching tabs and being on entertainment apps.
And so the funny thing is, my daughter started sixth grade 2 weeks ago, right? And
Mhm.
it's the first time where I was sent a message saying, "Could you please download this textbook?" And
Mhm.
I was thinking to myself, really? I got to get her a Kindle account now? I got to download a textbook? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like that was the first year. It was middle school, beginning of middle school, and so that was interesting for me because I was like, I hadn't even thought about that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you. We grew up in an area where you lug your books up and down. you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, they don't give kids lockers anymore
no, they
because
don't.
they don't have textbooks,
Yeah, they don't give.
right? I mean, the athletes get the lockers because they might need their sports equipment in there, but the kids don't need lockers anymore. So it is a new era, and parents are terrified. I don't think that traditional schools are helping because if anything, they're emphasizing the screen time, and they're checking their boxes because the kids are getting through the material, quote unquote, but they're doing it by clicking. But we know that when we click, there's just far less retention of knowledge.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
the
say,
distractibility, the temptation to be on a different app is terrible for these kids. And so, again, of an hour, I mean, we know this through the research, the amount of that hour that's actually on homework, that's actually task driven, when they have text messages from their friends, they're on Snapchat, they're on all the other apps that are messaging them, the amount of time they're actually doing homework is very small. And
retention, I can
that's
definitely see as
terrible.
a challenge because it's hard for even grown-ups to retain
Mm-hmm.
tremendous amounts of material when we're reading them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely see, for kids, the distraction, like everything you say resonates with me as a parent of a 12-year-old, right? You've got the distractions, the one thing I think the schools are now doing is banning phones during the day, which I think is helpful because
Mm-hmm.
even though
Mm-hmm.
they're not allowed to be on them, somehow they sneak them, So the fact that they've been like, hey, you can't take it out of your backpack, and it's more the
Mm-hmm.
parents than the kids, I think, who are like, please, they need a phone. So, which I thought is interesting because we didn't have phones and we all managed to get around. So,
I know. I know. I don't know how we did it, but we survived. But it is wonderful that there's more parental awareness, and they're demanding that the schools take the phones away, have a no phone policy, which is great. That's progress. If they are on a Chromebook or iPad, depending on the school, they still may have access to all those different apps. But again, the blue light, just the method of learning on a screen, is detrimental to brain development, and we're putting kids on screens, in kindergarten. They're not learning how to write. They're not learning how to, not forget cursive. They're not learning their block letters. They're not learning how to do long division, pencil and paper necessarily. Um, the level of cheating, I mean, there's just learning your lessons through the computer. And this is even apart from AI. I mean, college professors at elite universities are moving to having their kids do all of their essays and papers now, pencil and paper, in class because of AI. So to really compete at the top levels of
I heard
university,
that. Yeah, I heard that yesterday as
we're
well.
even going
Yeah,
we're even going back from 1990s,
yeah.
right, where where we got to write our papers on the word processors. We're going back from the 1990s to pencil and paper essays, just so the professors know that the kids didn't do it on AI.
Yep.
So if
So,
the kids aren't learning how to write
yeah.
now,
Yes.
pencil and paper, they won't be able to compete at the top university level.
And the reality is that AI is an incredible tool. Like you can use
For
it,
sure.
like I mean, I think it's amazing how it's gonna change the way that we do everyday functionality in a tremendous way, right? But the reason that this topic has been so interesting and so diverse with the types of heads of schools I've been talking to is both from the perspective and then also from the economics, right? So some of the schools that have very limited budgets are saying it's a lifesaver because we can introduce it for a couple of hours of education to be able to afford the teachers that we would like to hire. And so it frees up some capital for that type of investment that they want. And so I think it's just an interesting approach. That's why I wanted to do the series because it's such a diverse group of conversations from yours, which is, I think, really pure. Like, go back to It's the way that my daughter learned how to read and write was my mother basically said, we grew up in England, or she sat there and she made her like write it out. And her handwriting is beautiful because of that,
Mm-hmm.
because as a kindergartner, she learned how to read and write. So that's great. But I think that you're right in that it's almost like the art of writing, both from a physical perspective as well as a mental perspective, is diminishing, right? That's kind of what we're saying.
Yeah, and I think, AI is a wonderful tool for adults.
Yeah,
It's a wonderful tool for what, and adults need to know how to navigate it, right? To be the top of our industries. At Seashore, we're always focused on what's best for the kids, what's best for the child, and what's best for their brain development. There are a lot of reasons in education to go and embrace tech. It, saves money, right? It systematizes, it saves
yeah,
labor costs, all these different things. Saves teachers labor if they're going to be grading essays. It's all done on the computer. You could have an instant grammar check. But if you go back to what's best for the kids and what's best for their development, and we focus on the kid, you know, teaching them that this exists is, in theory, it's great, and telling them that it's changing rapidly, like
yeah,
exponentially, and then you have them graph what does exponential growth look like, pencil and paper.
yeah.
We want them to know it exists. We don't want them to develop their brains, passively, and the over reliance on technology at a young age is detrimental to their brain development.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating. Now, are you using AI within the organization from a functionality perspective?
For sure. For some of the adults in the organization, if we are doing some marketing videos, right? If we do a video like this one or a podcast, when we need to use an AI tool to help edit it, I mean, there's a lot of time saving that can help a lot with that. Stringing some photos together for social media posts, AI is incredible at that. Finding things quickly if we needed to look up a fact and we're writing something. For sure, the adults in the organization are, we're keeping up with how it's being used in other industries so that we can speak to it. So for sure, I think it's an incredible tool.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because it's at the beginning of it's like when you were like in Seattle at the forefront of the internet and now you're at the forefront of AI. It's kind of like it's very fascinating to me how we're really at the forefront of AI. None of us know what it's going to look like in 10 years, not even in like 1 year.
Right.
But
Right.
we know that it's going to make us operationally more efficient. And if it's
Mhm.
used for the mundane, the way that I look at it
Mhm.
is we use AI for the mundane routine, and we save our human capital for the things that really ignite thought. Like how do we provoke people? How do we invite people in? That
Mhm.
no machine can do, right?
For
That's
sure.
that's a human quality that is not going away. But can we do that in a more efficient way? I think so. Yeah.
And similar what you're saying about the internet, and I know that AI, the rate of growth is even,
It's faster.
exponentially even
Yeah.
faster than that.
Yeah.
It's really that character development, right?
Yes.
And it's only as good or as evil as we are in our hearts. And the internet can be, we can fundraise for charity and help, a girls' school in a third world country, and we could do amazing things on the internet. And the worst of human character can also come out on the internet. And so, we're when we're focused on education and children, it's really about that character development, developing their morals, developing their brains to know right from wrong, to develop their spirit. And that is really best done in nature, knowing that they are going to have these amazing tools at their hands. Again, just like nuclear technology, right? You can create a horrible or great, you can create energy, you can create war and destruction. So it's really just about focusing on AI and when is it prudent and good to use, and when do we need to sort of protect children and nurture their spirits and their brains before introducing them to it, and so they become good stewards
Yeah.
of this powerful tool.
I think I had to have you on because I thought this was so interesting and such a different, unique approach. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for spending some time. Is there anything that you wanted to ask me? I feel like my job is to be a steward to sort of get your story out there. I'm really, really excited about what you're doing. And I think it's, I think as a parent, it's really important. As someone who is developing AI, I think that it's really designed for the students to understand as they develop how to use it, which is what you're really saying, is that at the time when they're the most vulnerable, we teach them how to think. We teach them how to express themselves. And then as they become more mature, that's when we can start to introduce concepts that are advancing constantly. So who knows when they're 15 what that will look like, right? That's
exactly. And I really think I appreciate and applaud you for your bravery, since you're in the industry, and as a leader in the industry, really being a responsible steward of it as well, not to necessarily be, saying this is the greatest thing on earth for everybody at every time, right? That this is something that we need to use responsibly is so powerful. It is, and and it's going to be more powerful in 2 weeks.
It is pretty astounding at the pace, but it's a wonderful thing to see as well. So, but I think this is why I wanted to do the AI in education specifically, because it is so interesting, and I think a lot of heads of schools are struggling with this exact question, which is why we got such an overwhelming response to be part of this podcast. It's really because everyone's sort of trying to determine what is the right path. And I don't think there is a right or wrong path. I think everybody's going to sort of find their own path. And your path is pretty wonderful. But then, I have a call later on today with another school, and they're going to have a different perspective, and it's why we're doing this, right? To get different perspectives out there. So I think it's wonderful. I'm very excited about this whole series. It's been such a great experience for me already. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate
it.
Bye,
Marlene. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. You as well. Bye-bye.